man.
You are tuned into Frontline FM.
Yeah, so this is the Frontline FM stream, and earlier I was just saying, last time on the stream, I was covering the news and covering what's happening in the culture, and obviously, unfortunately, there's been an incident where Young Philly, a prominent YouTuber, has been charged with, I believe, rape and sexual assault, and he's innocent till proven guilty, but those that know him within the culture have not had good things to say about him, and they're saying these things they know of his character basically kind of aligns with the charges. However, today, because I did cover the case against Philly, today I'm going to cover in defense of him, also some of the wider implications of how that affects his world, to kind of give a balanced narrative. And there's also been claims that potentially the girl that he was sleeping with that made these allegations against him, potentially she was trying to exploit and use him. I cannot confirm whether this is true or not, but what we can do is we can investigate some of the evidence and try to present it to the public, and you guys can make your own conclusions. But yeah, we're going to cover the news, what's happening in the culture, and just entertaining videos in general. Earlier, if you were on the stream earlier, you might have heard me playing some music. So that was some music from some very talented artists, greatness only. So you got Gadge, and then you also have Why Diz. So listen for those names out. Gadge and Why Diz, very, very talented artists coming out the UK, producing a sound that is hasn't been heard in a while. So check them out, man. Check them out on SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, every single streaming platform. But without further ado, let's get straight into the topics.
Bit of love. Time to put the Vax carpet cleaner to the test.
Every time we done something, it was gearing towards that, and I wasn't, aware until I was outside.
Yeah.
Jockey, I don't know.
Philly.
Oh God.
Let's start there.
Okay.
Let's start with Philly. Big news. I was away. Was I? I think I was just going away or whatnot. Then heard this news about young Philly in Australia finding himself in a situation over there where he's been charged, isn't it?
Yes,
he's being charged. How many counts? Is it four? Someone said 8. Someone said 4.
I believe it's 4.
Yeah. 4 counts of, I think, 4 different 4 penetration counts, and then 1 was bodily harm.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
One was did you say one was strangulation? Yeah, one was strangulation. One was some other thing or whatever. And it's a tricky one, this one, because boy, as of right now, he can't come back to the country until they say potentially until the 19th of December. But even then, that doesn't necessarily mean that he can come back. I think all that means is that if I'm wrong, correct me, but when they go to the court, his lawyers or whatever will propose a certain thing, and then obviously if the trial starts, then he'll have to go back. But there's a big chance that in Australia, they take these things really seriously. There's a big chance that they may not let him leave until the whole thing is over. If he busts his case, then he can go home. If not, once the trial's there, if he's found guilty, he'll have to do jail time there. Then they'll deport him back. But he's not born in England, is he? He's Colombian. So they're very likely to deport him back to Colombia, which then means
If you're confused, I don't know if young Philly has British citizenship or not, because in the UK, so the UK used to be part of the British Empire, and the remnants of that is Great Britain. So a lot of people that immigrate here can get British citizenship, regardless of whether they're in the British Isles. Now, if you're born here, by default, you might get that. Not in all cases. You have the Windrush scandal. But those that immigrate here can apply. So I believe Philly might have, but what they might be alluding to is laws were changed during the pandemic where essentially if you're a dual national, like I'm a dual national. If you're a dual national citizen, so you have more than one citizenship within the UK, and you are deemed to do something criminal, then they can deport you back to what they consider your country of origin. So regardless of whether Philly might have Colombian citizenship and maybe have a visa and travel to Australia, or he might have a British citizenship, but either way, because of the recent laws, he still can be deported. Once he gets deported back to the UK, they can still choose to export him to Colombia, which is a double standard 100%, which is why the law wasn't very popular and why they deliberately chose to pass it during the pandemic. But let's continue to go on.
I'm not sure what the connection between England and Australia is today or whatever, but it just opens up a whole bigger potential thing for him. But I don't know, man. I don't even really know what to say on it. I just think it's a really bad situation that he's in. And I think the one thing that I noticed when I was watching the, you know, online and the conversations and whatnot, I'm going to be really honest. I think that nobody was necessarily there. They didn't see what happened. They know that there's this innocent until proven guilty thing or whatever. I'm not sure what that looks like, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think the unfortunate thing for him is that he doesn't have much good character references. There's, in this time of going through what he's going through, aside from naturally the people that you would probably expect, I don't necessarily need to say their names or whatnot. Maybe these guys will have some super good character references on him because they know him a certain way. But in general, his character references have always just been really, 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 really bad. And so now, in this, you know, sometimes when you hear about these type of things happening, it can be quite split. Sometimes some people say, well, you know what, we ain't heard the other side. We ain't heard the other side. And then there will be another side that will turn around and say, especially maybe women, for example, who have been before in the past or whatnot, will turn around and they will just believe the woman because they not understand what they've been through. In this case, because of his character reference, because of the dealings that people have had with him personally, it is tainting his personality even more so in this situation. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I we'll see what happens in the end of it, but people expecting, I don't know, Chunks and whoever else to come out and actually talk about this whole thing right now is like, people have to pattern up a little bit. Of course they're not.
Yeah, I think the people, there's a couple of things I don't understand. I do understand, but I think, like, I agree with you, Chucky, you shouldn't be expected. It doesn't make sense.
Right now.
It's your thing. Do what you want.
Whatever kind of brekkie floats your boat, ours is delicious.
No, in a sense of, yeah, some things don't make sense. Like, once you're able to look at it objectively and take your personal whatever out of it. So, for example, the people that are asking other people to speak on it in regards to the friends or people around him, we should take a look at them outside of just one situation and ask them, do they speak about this situations like this? If they don't, I don't understand why there's a level of expectation for them to talk about it. The second reason why I don't understand why there's that level of expectation to talk about it is purely because of the way that those businesses are set up. They're set up to talk to a market space which is not really reflective of them. It's just a market space which is extremely profitable. So therefore, they're naturally gonna have demands, and that market space naturally demands things off our products like Philly, a product like Chunks. They make demands which are not maybe to the way these lot are, but products like that within that space never have things to say about when situations like this manifest. This is not the first time, and it's not going to be the last time. So again, to put the expectancy on them to say something is wrong, because when you do have a product in that market space, you have to be careful about what you say and what you do, because you have the potential to lose it all. And everybody in that situation has responsibilities. So again, expecting them to say something when the market space they speak to is that sensitive where they could potentially lose so much is just a bit wrong as well.
I agree with that.
I think also in this situation, I begin to feel sorry for the likes of his mum. I feel sorry for the likes of his sister, because come December 19th or January, when it's all concluded, or whenever it's all concluded, if he's innocent and he's proven to be innocent, he's lost a lot. He's lost a hell of a lot. And that will just be sad. Obviously, the other alternative situation that everybody is speaking about, I don't feel the need to chime in on it. I think he wouldn't ask my opinion, but it would be no point. I am who I am. I've always made it very clear how I feel about certain situations, irrespective of who the person is. And everyone's speaking about that side of it as well. So I don't feel the need to chime in and speak about if he's guilty, what should happen and all of that. There is enough people having that conversation, and that's cool. The conversation I want to have about this situation is just an alternative voice, and I just feel like I do feel sorry for his family members around him, because something that supported them. You're talking about the fact that he said that he retired his mum. Like I said, if he is guilty, okay, fair enough, you can have what you got to say about young Philly, but like that responsibility of him looking after his family, whether it's it's got nothing to do with me, but I can still feel a little bit of that's sad, bro. Like, who's gonna be able to support that situation or support your sister? They may have things in place, I don't know, but it's still a difficult situation for a mum to now type in her son's tag name across all social media platforms and just see this type of stuff. There are innocent,
especially as well when it's like it's nuanced in it, because your son a certain way, but
she's finding out bare different realities that she wasn't unaware of.
There you go.
I reckon she would have much preferred to find it out in the comfort of her own home, having a conversation with her son.
Though, do you know what? I think when this all came to light, that's just when we all heard about it. I think that was probably a thing that was brewing for a little while. I don't know how long a little while is. Could be a couple of days, a day before, a few days, whatever. She probably would have heard about it prior to that. Still, they would have known about that. Still.
Well, man. So I don't know. We know as much as everybody else knows. To be fair, I can only speak for myself. I imagine you're in the same situation.
Yeah.
And man, just have to just see what happens. It's sad on both sides. It's sad for the victims if it turns out that it was true. It's sad for the victims. They've got, families, they've got lives that they're living that are potentially extremely affected by the nature of this situation. If it turns out to be, it wasn't true, I feel sorry for the fact that, this has all had to happen and it's not true. So both sides, no matter what, there is no winner. There's nothing to be happy about for the end of it. It's just a very, very sad situation, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I think as well, the only way, because of his character references that you would lean to, I think even if he was in his best case scenario, in his super best case scenario that he was actually innocent in this, he's naturally still guilty by public opinion. Public opinion will still 100%. Look at it that way. But also on top of that, I think the only way, and brands are probably still not going to want to touch him, because from what it sounds like is there's been discrepancies in and amongst that anyway. If you speak to some people that work within the brands or whatnot, I think like he's a very super talented guy. So some people will put up with talent to a degree, but the moment that you are in a mad pickle will be the moment that these brands will be very quick to just withdraw, which is one of the reasons why, I think a conversation that you've always led to having, not just here, but even outside, I've seen you having this conversation with content creators, is about having your own thing. Because one day there's going to become a time where these brands are not necessarily going to be there. And where is your home? What does your home look like? 100%. I think you even had that conversation with them.
I had that conversation with Chunks and Philly in my living room with Vuj very early. And I said to them, where's your home? Where's your market space? Because my biggest problem with working with brands is don't work with brands. Of course, you got to work with that capital to increase your whatever you're doing. You need that capital. Do you know where I'm coming from? You need that brand association. It's very, very good for your brand.
Yeah.
But my problem is the market that they have is not your market. So when you go over there, it should be for short periods of time, for good amounts of money, to increase the value of what you're doing, so you can then run off with whatever you're doing, and the next time you get another good opportunity which fits with your narrative, boom, integrate it into your existing plans. My biggest problem with creatives, my biggest problem with everybody is they don't really have a plan. Their whole plan is to get a brand deal. And then after they get that, their whole product and their whole placement is to consistently get brand deals. And I'm saying that affects your marketplace, because now your marketplace is in a space that it was never in to start off with, and the demands of this market are completely different to the demands that you know naturally.
100.
It's like when I used to see Harry Pinero no longer on the stairs. That's your direct market that you
I'll take even a step further than that, yeah? I'll say each person, we have a God-given talent. And the reason we have that talent is because we have a purpose, you understand? Now, put capitalism aside, put business aside, yeah? You got to do what you can to infiltrate the market, innit? And so yeah, you might have to go into a foreign market, but also you have your native market. But even put that aside, yeah? What is your purpose? What are you going to do with that talent and skill? What is your goal you're trying to achieve with that talent and skill? I think that's much deeper than any markets. You get what I'm saying? I'm not saying Young Philly, Chunks and all these people. Poet is right in terms of, yes, by them going off to a different market, which is foreign from their community, it means they can't talk on certain issues and they have to portray themselves in a certain way. But even deeper than that, if you're trying to achieve a particular objective outside of that market, I feel like that is where a lot of artists are left nowadays, lost, because they're more concerned with the financial element, not as an end to a means, but as the goal. And that's where corruption and all these things can now happen, when your primary goal is just financial gain. Obviously, it's good to make it financially sustainable, whatever you're doing, so that it's sustainable in general and you can keep on doing it. But your purpose and goal behind doing something, especially anything creative or anything in entertainment, should be deeper than business. It should be something like, okay, what am I going to do for my community, like Poet's saying. So 100% I agree. And I feel like the moment that you start, your goals become defined by a foreign marketplace and it's just purely financial gain, that's when you start to corrupt yourself and you will do corrupt things. But yeah, let's get more into the video.
You know what they want, you know what they love, you probably know what they eat for breakfast, what music they listen to. That's such incredible information to have about your market space. Now, for you to go to a market space which just has loads of different polarized characters from all different types of spaces, for you to try and monitor that level of information, it's pointless. You're better off going over there with all your niggas and all your people and saying, this is how we're going to regulate it whilst I'm here. And when I go, you go back to regular broadcasting. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Kendrick does it very well. He brings a massive core audience to wherever he's going, and he can be on stage talking about slavery, whatever the hell he wants. Your average art.
That's my point. It's not like, this is where I'll critique what Poet's saying. You shouldn't treat your community like the marketplace. What do I mean by that, yeah? Is the marketplace is a place of exchange that defines the socioeconomic transactions we can do within our industry, right? So you have the industry, which is a microcosm of a socioeconomic structure, but then you have the culture. Now, this is where I critique what Poet's saying. It's not about serving a local marketplace. It's about serving your local culture. And then you can bring that culture to the marketplace, you understand? And begin to regulate and adjust things there, as opposed to adjust the culture to the marketplace. But if you treat your culture like a marketplace, you're going to run into similar issues eventually. That's why I say you should be coming to the culture with a particular goal, a particular mindset. What are you trying to achieve in the community? Why? With this talent. In their case, it's entertainment. What am I trying to do with entertainment? What am I trying to do in music? These things. Because that's where greatness, I believe, comes from. Some of the greatest artists, it's bigger than them trying to make a buck. You understand? So it's not you just trying to make a buck off your community or trying to make a buck off the white community or anyone else. You understand? The industry. I feel like there's room for both. There's room for you to tap into the culture and do something significant and important in the culture, as well as make money in the marketplace. I think there's room for both things.
Artists can't do that because their market space is a bag of people in Colchester as well as a bag of people in Brixton, and they don't want to hear about black oppression. And that's all I'm saying. Keep it real,
Do you know what?
people.
Here when you say that, sorry, I don't want to divert from my point quickly, but here when you say that, it does seem like the one person who does have that done quite well is Nico, though. Because
Yeah, so he brings up some good points, but I want to get more into the actual topic itself. So let me go over to Topical Juice, and let's hear what he has to say about the other side of Young Philly's story.
Early in the morning.
What's going on, people? It's your boy Cam, Topical Juice, and we are back with another video for you today. Is Young Philly being set up? That's the title of today's video. Now, unless something breaking happens in the next few days / weeks, this will be the last video I do on this topic. I feel like I don't want to drag it out anymore. We already know what's happened, what he's been accused of, but it's only fair that I give another side to the story, or talk about another side to the story. The first video I did on this was breaking the news itself, and I gave you my opinion in that video. I said what I thought, whether I believed he did it or not, whether he's capable or not. The second video I did on this topic was less about Philly and the case itself, more about the disappointment I felt when I looked at the reaction. A lot of people were victim blaming, not necessarily blaming the victim in this case, but just I was disappointed in the victim blaming mentality in general. You feel me? Just an overall critique of the reaction. So this video we're talking about, is he...
See, this is where I critique Topical Juice, is the victim blaming mentality. Yes, it's something prevalent within the culture. However, if you are coming with an assumption that one person is guilty and one person is innocent to any case, then you automatically put yourself in a position of bias. Which is no problem. There is no problem but people's then seeing you as the neutral. They already know you have an agenda against this person. So if that person does happen to be innocent, they know that it's not within your interest to report on that, if that makes sense, because you have an agenda. So that's what I would say is sometimes it's best to come to these issues without not necessarily not believing the victim, but trying to seek truth. How about put it that way? Trying to seek truth and gather as much data from both parties as possible. And you can express your own personal opinion on how you feel about it, but then you kind of got to separate that from your analysis of what you think based off that data, if that makes sense. And try to be as neutral as possible. The reality is everyone has a bias at the end of the day, though. So it is kind of good to also at the same time state where you stand. That's why I respect he stated his opinion. However, I'm just stating some of the flaws sometimes with you automatically being inclined to believe the quote-unquote victim. Because even if by you calling one person a victim, you're already automatically defining the other person as, you understand, this in relation to the victim. But there is no evidence as such in terms of a complete case to say who is the victim and who is the perpetrator. Do you understand? So usually, that's why I say it's kind of flawed when saying he was tied to the victim blaming mentality, because who is the victim in this situation? Now, based off the evidence so far, I'd say it's likely that and it's not looking good, that it's likely that Philly is a perpetrator and the lady is the victim. However, in an actual court and in a case where no one's actually been found guilty, you can't get mad at people for saying there's a victim blaming mentality when there is in reality no real victim yet until the case is done, if that makes sense. So that's down to you, how you want to report on events and how you want to perceive events. If you want to report your opinion, that's okay. But not everyone might want to give their opinion on it. Some people might just want to give their analysis of based on the information that's available so far. And everyone's entitled to do that. What people aren't entitled to do is shame people, you understand, and try and force narratives. That's when you are actually victim blaming. So if people are shaming the girl and they're trying to force the narrative without any evidence that she is da-da-da. And same thing with Young Philly. If people are trying to forcibly shame that is actually victim blaming. But if someone is analysing the facts and they're saying, you know what, I don't really want to focus on my opinion, but just the facts that are there, there's a potential that Philly might be the victim, you understand, or then that's not really victim blaming. I'll say victim blaming more so is if she tries to make her case, and no matter what, then you're not taking into consideration any of the things she's saying or the supposed quote unquote victim is saying. If you're not taking in that data and analyzing that information, and you're saying, and you're being circumstantial, so you're saying, oh well, why were you here? Why are you wearing this? Why are you there? You're not even trying to hear the evidence. You're immediately assuming that person is lying. That is victim blaming. But if someone analyzes the evidence right now and the evidence is inconclusive, you understand, that person isn't victim blaming. They're just not giving their personal opinion, but they're saying right now, the facts that we have right now are inconclusive. And those are two different things. So that's why I'd critique what Topical Juice is saying, because I don't think everyone right now is victim. There are some people that are victim blaming, but I don't think everyone is. I think the evidence is just inconclusive right now. And I think that we have a lot to say about his character. But in terms of the actual tangible evidence, it's not looking good in Philly's position, because they have had enough to charge him, but he hasn't been convicted yet. So technically, this is all accusations. We're not in the realm of there is actually a definite victim and a definite perpetuator until more is revealed about the case, if that makes sense. But remember, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an expert, so this, even to a degree, is coming from my perspective and my opinion. So I'm the hypocrite as well. But yeah, let's go on.
Being set up, and the reason I'm doing this video is because there's a girl on TikTok who's come out and she did a video basically saying that it's set up. The girl who's accusing him, she's done this before, she's this, she's that, and I think it's only right as someone who's fair, objective and balanced, despite my preconceived notions, despite my opinion. I think it's fair that I talk about this. And
I respect that. I respect that he trying to be fair and balanced, and that he's acknowledged your preconceived notions and your opinion is different from the truth. Do you understand? So the truth is revealed over time, and it is what it is. A lot of people like say my truth. I don't personally believe in that. I don't believe you can own truth, because you're only here temporal. I'm temporal, but I believe the truth is more closer to eternal. You understand? It's going to be here regardless of our understanding of it is relative. So with that being said, at least my perspective on the truth is that yeah, bro, your preconceived notions and your opinions can evolve over time relative to the truth with that information, or they can be stagnant. But what it is not necessarily is the truth in its entirety. Do you get what I'm saying? So you have to always acknowledge that your personal opinions and that your perspective and your preconceived notions might be incorrect. The more information that is revealed about the truth as time goes on. Do you get what I'm saying? So I'm glad he's acknowledged that, because that makes it easier for me to digest any information he's going to say, because I know he's not coming with a strict agenda as he might have been.
And shed some light on this. Let's get into this video, man. If you like the video, for me it makes a massive difference on how the YouTube video performs in the algorithm. If you like me, if you like my content, please do consider pressing that subscribe button. It's free, you can always change your mind. Press the bell to be notified. I'll be dropping videos in the AM and the PM. And of course, if you want to support your boy, support my channel, please do hit that Patreon link. Last weekend's video, the weekend just gone, was all about Trey Songz and his history of violence towards women and people in general. The week before that it was Jay-Z, the week before that it was Andrew Tate. So please do consider signing up. Cheaper than your daily coffee. Let's get into this video. So as I mentioned, a woman on TikTok has basically come out and she's apologized to Philly, and she alleges that there's been a friend of the girl who's accused Philly who came out and said that she done this before. She did this to Bryson Tiller when he came to Australia, but they never pressed charges and all this stuff. And she's a SEX worker.
Mummy, where are my shoes? Are they in the kitchen?
And she's a stripper. Now I'm going to play some of that video here. I'm not going to play all of it because it's like 9 minutes long, but I'm just going to play the start of it.
So the media is concealing who this female is. So everyone's like, who is this mysterious female? This mysterious female is Miss Emma Burns, the one and only stripper and sex worker. Round of applause for Miss Emma Burns. Yasharmuta. So, why am I so annoyed? It's because Emma Burns' friends have come out and they have exposed her. Emma went to the hotel with Young Philly and they both had a mutual agreement. When you have a mutual agreement, babes, it's consensual. So there's no there. It is consensual. Yes, if they, take it a bit further and stuff, then...
Yeah, that's one critique I was going to say is if there is a mutual agreement, then it is consensual. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that that person can't be raped in that situation. So you might have a mutual agreement with a stripper to have sex, but then if you get her in a room and lock her and start beating her up and kicking her in the face. Even if she said in agreement you want to have aggressive foreplay, but if he starts to the point her life is in danger at that, and she says she still has the right to say no in that situation, and if he keeps on going, he still can rape her. So it is a, you know what I mean? Yes, there's a mutual agreement, but just because there's a mutual agreement doesn't legally mean that she's not in a situation where she can be sexually assaulted or raped. However, on the flip side of things, if you do have a mutual agreement, then it's not gonna if something does happen to you after that, it's not gonna really work in your favor. Which is why this line of work is quite dangerous. A lot of people, when they're talking about sex workers, I think a lot of the social critique and the social, other than, yes, you can say double standards and gender roles but if you also actually equate risk, you understand, and reward, these are the risks I don't think people necessarily take into consideration with this type of work. That there is a big grey area because technically someone is paying for these services. It puts you already in a precarious situation where if that person does abuse you, the public are less inclined to believe that they abuse you, if that makes sense, because of the line of work you do. And that doesn't mean because of this line of work you deserve that, but it does mean we have to weigh up the risks and rewards that if you do this line of work, what's it called again? These are the potential problems you may encounter, and it's not no small play problem, you understand? Like, if this happens to you, this is life altering and life changing. Like, it's very hard psychologically to come back from something like rape or sexual assault, especially as a woman. So if that happens to you, you understand, it's not a problem you just overcome. So you have to take that into consideration. Anyone that gets involved in that type of line of work, these are the risks that often when people are trying to sell you on the dream, that these are the risks they don't want you to think about, that you should be taken into consideration, because they are very, very much real. And it just takes one time. It only takes one time, and that's your whole life trajectory changed. So yeah, it's a techie one, but just because there is a mutual agreement does not necessarily mean these things cannot take place. However, if there is a mutual agreement, the public is less inclined to take it as serious, if that makes sense. So I can see both sides, but let's proceed.
Okay, yeah, it is a bit too much and charges can be pressed, but it was a mutual agreement. Emma Burns had then texted her friend.
If they take it too far, charges still can be pressed. You understand? Mutual agreement does not void that.
And set one of her friends sorry, and told her friend how much of a good time she really had and that she was ready to go home. Could her friend book her an Uber? Remember that her friend should book her the Uber, but she's a stripper. Please remember these two things, okay? Because we're going to be very logic here. Her friend should book her the Uber. When her friend was going to book her the Uber, she then told her friend, oh, actually, I don't need it anymore. That doesn't sound like someone who's being sexually assaulted, Emma. That sounds like someone who's having a goddamn good time. A goddamn good time. Because if you were being assaulted, You are in a hotel where there are hundreds of people on the same level. You could scream. You could text a friend because it seems your phone was working really fine, Miss Mams. You could run down to reception and tell reception to call the police if your life was at any danger or there was any threat of your safety. Those are 3 things you could have done. Screaming would have probably been the best one, because I can guarantee you there would have been someone next door, because we know how hotels in Australia is booked, packed and busy. Okay. Emma, you are a sex worker. You are also a stripper. There is nothing wrong with that, because if I could shake my ass and get a little coin, I will too. So I am not bashing you for that in any way, shape or form, Emma. But it's pretty obvious your stripping career isn't taking you anywhere. The fact that you have to ask your friend to book you an Uber.
Now, first things first, I played quite a lot of that clip. Rather than breaking it down scene by scene, I kind of want to talk about it in a whole. You know, a lot of people believe he's capable of this. A lot of people believe he did this, right? Without knowing the facts and the evidence. You know, none of us know the facts. None of us have seen the facts. None of us were there. I haven't seen the CCTV. I haven't seen the pictures of her bruise.
I'm glad he acknowledged this, because this is the reality of the case so far. As much as we might personally know things about young Philly's character, the reality of the situation is there is enough evidence for him to be charged, so it's not looking good in this situation, but we don't know the actual evidence. So there is no actually conclusive information on what we consider to be the truth. So with that being said, we are kind of in limbo. But yeah, let's proceed and hear what he has to say.
Is I've heard stories about him. I know what I know from my friend and the aggression that he showed her, and I made up my opinion based on that. And a lot of people agree, but a lot of people disagree. But those people that disagreed with people like me and others, they said, well, wait till the facts come out, wait till the evidence come out. Yeah, we can't just be jumping to conclusions. Fine, you're right, fair enough. Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. While I've got my opinion, I'm not going to say you're wrong for that opinion. This is the thing, I can be objective, I can be balanced. But that same logic must be applied to this woman. This woman has absolutely no evidence. No evidence. But she's actually presenting it like it's fact. She's telling us she's an SCX worker. She's telling us that it was mutual, it was an agreement. She's telling us that she texted her friend saying don't bother to come pick me up or don't send the Uber. She's telling us things that we didn't know about the case as facts. She's presenting it as facts. Now that's wrong. It's okay for her to have an opinion, the same way.
My point earlier is that there is no real way of confirming anything that she's alleging, because we don't know if that person has the same name, and even on top of that, he is correct. There is no evidence presented, so this is all anecdotal. It's all anecdotal evidence. This is no different to him reporting on young Philly's character about what he personally knows, and it's no different to her. You understand? She's talking about the alleged victim, but again, it's anecdotal. There is no evidence, so it's just if you personally know that sex worker, you might be able to add to that anecdotal. This is how a character is. The only bit in that, if she can prove that mutual agreement does exist, and she presents what's it called again, conclusive evidence. You understand, tangible evidence that we can read and see, that might affect the circumstances of the case. But without that, this is all just hearsay. You understand?
I've got an opinion based on what I know about Philly and based on the fact that the prosecution's pursuing this and etc, etc. I've got an opinion on that. That's okay. She can have an opinion. She can say she doesn't believe it. That's fine. But she's presenting information that we do not know to be fact. That's the first thing. We have no idea. So all the Philly defenders, they will use this as ammo. Like, yeah, he's innocent. It's a setup. But I'll say the same thing that you said to me. Where's the evidence? Where's the proof? You got DJ Academics posting it. You got all these random things posting it saying that she's a setup chick. How do we know this? If it comes out that she's a setup chick, I've already said I'd apologise to Philly. I'd apologise to his friends, his family, and more importantly, Philly himself. I would hand on my heart apologise, because I don't care about being right. I care about the truth. I've got no ego or pride. If it
where I respect Topical Juice on this is just because something is proven within a court of law, you understand, especially knowing how the system works and knowing that those we exist within a capitalist system. Yeah, it's a quote unquote democracy, but really it's liberal. It's a neoliberal. We're in a neoliberal socioeconomic structure. So money speaks. So yes, you see what's it called again? Lady Justice, and the scales are meant to be equal and fair. But the reality is, those with more money on the scales, you understand, those with more money for lawyers, those with more connections within the court, those with that come from a certain background that people might associate with privilege and are likely to be perceived as more of an upstanding citizen, you understand, are more inclined to do better in court than those that have less wealth, come from a poor socioeconomic background, that don't necessarily have the network or connections to support their arguments in court. So with that being said, this is why I say it's neoliberalism, is often the richest person is more inclined to win within a court of law, despite the way it's meant to be so set up, quote unquote, as fair. When you bring in the economic incentives into this, people still need to get paid. Those with more money and more connections are more likely to and not all the time, but this has happened in history, which is why there is this is why the Me Too movement happened, because there is a big, especially those with power in the entertainment industry, within politics, media, in the aristocracy, within tech, with individuals within that have leveraged their power to evade these cases. And that's why stuff like the Me Too movement. But on the flip side, that's where also false accusations also happen within the Me Too movement. A lot of people had their careers ruined, and they also had their reputation tarnished for women that essentially were trying to utilize this movement to get a quick buck. So there is both sides, but what I would say is what is imperative is searching the truth. Aside from, if you rely too much on the idea of the court of law, like I said, there are certain factors, you understand, that will make something do well within a court of law, you understand. But I think you as an individual and us as communities, the most important thing is to seek truth within this. Not your personal opinion, not your preconceived notions, and not just what the court says, but what do you believe the truth is based on the facts, the information, and also what you know about the people. And that may not necessarily be able to be proved in a court of law, but I think morally, I think it's a more important thing we need to start doing when it comes to talking on important discussions like this. Is it shouldn't just be simply what is the court decision. It shouldn't simply just be what is our personal opinion or my truth, or you understand, our preconceived notions based on what we know. But it should be taking everything into its entirety. What is the truth? And that is fundamentally what matters the most.
Turns out that this girl is lying and she's actually set him up. Not only will I tear her to shreds, I will actively pursue and push for her arrest. I'll be saying that in my video. Women that falsely claim something as serious as rape, you deserve jail time. Facts. I've got no qualms with that. The difference between someone like myself and others is that while I may choose to believe victims initially, because statistically speaking, they're telling the truth, that doesn't mean that they can't lie, or that doesn't mean that when presented with more evidence, opinions can change. E.g. Amber Heard. When it initially broke that Johnny Depp was abusing Amber Heard, initially I thought, whoa, that's crazy. I can't believe Johnny would do something like this. It did not take me long at all to change my mind. I very quickly realized Amber was not a victim or a survivor. She was the perpetrator. The reason why my opinion changed is because evidence came out, facts came out that proved she was no victim. That's the beauty of opinions. They're allowed to change. So if it turns out that this woman is lying, I will 100% hold her accountable for that, and she deserves jail time. But let's actually stay on topic here. This woman has no evidence to back this up. I haven't seen any texts from the friends, the alleged friend of the girl who did this. I've searched TikTok, I've searched Twitter, I haven't found it. If anyone's got the proof or the evidence of the text messages that the girl who accused Philly, her friend, said that exonerates him, please DM me. Everyone's saying that this girl allegedly set him up, but there's no one showing where they got this information from. Now, secondly, I don't like the narrative, and I don't like how this woman brought up the fact that she's an SEX worker or a stripper. She was slut shaming her. She was basically undermining her because she was an SEX worker. She's saying because she's an alleged worker. By the way, I don't even know this to be true, but because she's an alleged worker or a stripper, that she can't be great. That's like saying a murderer can't be killed. Like, what are you talking about? Are we saying that just because she does SEX work that she deserves to get raped? Or maybe that she put herself in a position to get raped. You could possibly argue that, because in your line of work, you are going to come across different men. Or are we saying that SEX workers can't be raped because they're just slags and sluts and things like that? I don't agree with that notion. You feel me? And I actually know, personally, a former stripper who has got more morals than 99% of women I've ever come across.
I'll take you even a step further. I would say, as a sex worker, you are more inclined, because of your nature of line of work and the type of character. Think about it. The type of people most likely as a sex worker you are going to deal with, whether we like to admit it or not culturally, it's going to be incels. People that are involuntarily celibate, whether it's not the same as being a virgin, but essentially they're not getting pussy. They're not getting girls. And within that being said, what are the reasons for them not getting that? Yes, they could be socially awkward. Yes, but there's also a plethora of other reasons. Within that person might be because they're bad mind, the reason they're not getting it. What's to stop them from raping you once they get the opportunity? So I think actually sex workers are more inclined to have these sort of issues of being raped, but because of the stigma of their line of work, like I mentioned, they're less inclined to be believed or taken seriously. So that's why I bring up the point that just because she is a sex worker does not mean necessarily she can't be sexually assaulted or raped, even if there is a mutual agreement. However, like I said, we still have to hold accountability here. Anyone that is considering to get in that line of work, if there is where you're doing these type of mutual agreements with people and so forth, just know that you are putting yourself at risk for a potential reward. So you have to think, does this reward equate if this risk happens? Because this risk could be a life-altering risk, you understand? And also, if it does happen, I've already put myself in a position where people are less inclined to take me seriously. So that is just my advice for anyone that is within that line of work. These are some of the things you should consider. However, aside from that, is we still should be neutral to anyone within any line of work when this happens, and we should look at the facts and the evidence, and if the facts and evidence is inclined for us to say, oh, this might have happened to this person, we should believe them regardless of their work. Especially if they're a sex worker, despite the stigma, you should be more inclined to take that person serious, because they are in a more vulnerable position for this to happen, as opposed to your average person that might not be doing that. So yeah, it can still happen to them, but they're less likely to be put in that situation where it can happen. So yeah, let me continue the video.
Had the biggest celebrities in the world after her, from your biggest athletes, your biggest artists, and didn't put out for any of them. Yeah, I know this for a fact. Yeah, it's one of my close friends. Yeah, it's not about the line of work you do. What about drug dealers, gangsters, people that push heroin and crack and cocaine into their own communities, destroying families? We put them on pedestals. We idolize them. Gangsters, yeah, they're the best. I listen to the music. Yeah, I listen to music that corrupts the youth. I listen to all that type of stuff, and I love it. I'm not gonna lie. I love drill and I love all this stuff. While I don't agree with what they're doing, I like the music. But we romanticize and glorify that lifestyle, selling drugs, this, that, and the other. I don't judge people that sell drugs. If that's what they're doing, that's what they choose to do. Whatever. The same way I don't judge SEX workers and strippers. I believe strippers can get great. I believe SEX workers can get great. So I don't like the way she framed that. You can have a
I'll take it even a step further. Wait, bear with me. Yo. One sec, wait, bear with me. Yeah, man. I would say actually in the same way that a drug dealer, quote unquote, or whatever. Listen, there's personal accountability within these things, but one thing we have to take into consideration is class consciousness and socioeconomic structures. The reality of the situation is we're in a world run by money, and that those, especially if you're a minority, if you're of a lower socioeconomic income, if you're of a certain class, you are more vulnerable to certain positions within society, dealing drugs, sex work. These sort of, you are more vulnerable to get this immediate income. Not necessarily saying it's the right thing to do, but I'm saying you are more vulnerable, and that's not saying it's exclusive to them, because there are other ways that this affects everyone. So that being said, just because someone's more socioeconomically inclined to do one thing, you understand, doesn't mean we shouldn't believe him. In the same way a drug dealer is more likely to get murdered, you understand? And just because what we might deem socially they do as not righteous doesn't take away the fact that still they are more inclined to be abused by the police, to be murdered, and you understand? Just because you might deem personally, oh, I think this isn't right, doesn't mean legally this is just, because it's not. Legally, a drug dealer, especially, let's say a kid selling a Benz, a £10 bag of weed. Does that person deserve to be killed? Does that person deserve to be abused by the police? Does that person deserve... Do you understand? So now let's take it and apply it to a sex worker. Let's say you know a girl that's not even done... Maybe she's done a little bit of sex work. But does that person deserve to be raped? Does that person deserve to be sexually assaulted just because they do sex work? Do you see what I mean? So 100% I agree with him here, is we put a lot of quote-unquote bad people within society on a pedestal. But the reality of it is these are more so socioeconomic factors, you understand? Now, to putting these socioeconomic factors aside, you understand, we should still apply the law equally. Now, I'm one of those people, I don't necessarily believe the law is, I believe the law is part of a neoliberal structure. So I don't necessarily believe the law will always align with the truth, you understand? So I'm even more so along the line of we should seek the truth, you understand? The law should be applied justly, but in reality, in theory, it's not. In theory, it is, but in reality, it's not. But the minimum we should do is pursue the truth, irregardless of how we feel about the same situation. We should try to be just and fair when applying that, irregardless of how we personally feel about that person or what they do, you understand? Because that person, because of what they do, they might be more inclined for these unjust things to happen to them. And justice, in order for it to be just, should be applied to everyone. You understand? It can't be you're selective because with only the people you like. Or else that's not justice, brother. That's not justice.
Opinions and judge people's line of work, that's okay, that's your prerogative, that's your opinion, but I just don't really see the relevancy here. For me, I just don't know where the evidence is, that's what I'm saying. So you can argue, well, you don't know where the evidence is to accuse Philly. I don't. But the fact is, if the prosecution felt that they had no evidence to go off, they wouldn't pursue it. Now that doesn't mean he did it, but it means that there's evidence to suggest he did, whether it's the CCTV they allegedly have. Or it's the bruises. Now I don't think the CCTV is going to show much if it was inside the hotel room. There's not going to be a CCTV in the room, so maybe the CCTV showed that, I don't know, them walking in the hotel. I'm not too sure what to expect from the CCTV, but they've got these bruises and whatnot. Now you can get bruises from...
Sorry, my microphone was off. Yeah, so that was my point, is that just because you might personally feel the type of way about an individual does not mean that the evidence necessarily supports how you feel, you understand? So we should take our feelings aside and look at the evidence and try to be conclusive of what's the truth. However, at the moment, the evidence, you understand, isn't conclusive, but there is enough evidence to charge Philly, which means that likely at this current moment, it's more likely the status quo is saying it's implicating Philly more as a perpetuator as opposed to the sex work, quote unquote sex worker, or I won't even say sex worker because again, this is all alleged. Reality is we just know there's a victim and we know there's a alleged perpetrator. We don't know if she's a sex worker. There is no evidence to confirm so. However, there is no conclusive evidence, so we don't actually know the truth right now. However, the evidence that does exist does point towards Philly, not the quote unquote sex worker. So yeah, let's proceed.
Normal sex. But when you slap a girl in dogs and you start spanking that ass, sometimes it can bruise. Yeah, it happens. Yeah. Obviously, they're saying that there's evidence of something that's potentially non-consensual. Another point that I strongly disagree with this girl on is the fact that she said, if you were getting raped, you would scream. If you were getting raped, why didn't you scream? You were in a hotel room. If you screamed, someone would have heard you. If you were being attacked, you could have gone down to reception. You could have snitched. You could have said this. You could have said that. That is a very...
So that is an instance of where you are victim blaming. You aren't willing to hear that person's anecdotal evidence because of these circumstances that you're applying to them, because you feel in this hypothetical, these are the things that you would have done, even though you weren't in the circumstance. So you don't know what the reality of the situation is, what is possible in that moment and what's not possible. But you theorize in your own head, because you don't want to hear the victim's evidence, that it doesn't make sense because in this hypothetical, I would have done this. So why didn't you do that? That don't make no sense. You understand? That's victim blaming. That's straight up victim blaming.
Very ignorant statement to make.
And the reason that is, it's important to be critical, right? It's important to be critical of all the characters in the story, yeah? But we have to take into consideration one's character, you understand, does not necessarily define the truth in a court of law. So what is considered the evidence, you understand, is more important. So your own hypotheticals you create in your brain should not act as a barrier for you to hear this person's evidence. Because what that is you're creating a prejudice. You're creating a prejudice in your brain so you don't have to hear that person's side of the story. And that's instantly creating bias and victim blaming. So what you're supposed to do is, regardless of what you know about that person's character, try to hear their side of the story and evaluate the evidence. And based off your evaluation of the evidence, then you can make a conclusion on your personal opinion, whatever. You shouldn't make the conclusion purely off that person's character alone, because that's how you can fall into the trap of victim blaming. When they do present you with evidence, you say, well, rather than hearing the evidence and evaluating, you're going to start saying, well, why didn't you do this, this, and this, that. That's victim blaming, man. You don't want to hear the evidence. You're already blaming them before you've already heard what they had to say because of these factors. That's wrong.
I don't know this girl, I'm not going to make assumptions on her life, but that was very uneducated and very ignorant, because a lot of rape victims feel so vulnerable in the moment, feel so powerless in the moment that they can't scream. They're mute. They're paralyzed by fear, paralyzed by inadequacy, confusion.
That was another very good point as well, is that everyone reacts to fear differently, man. Some people scream, some people laugh, but some people say nothing. Some people freeze, some people go mute. Some people internalize it. Some people lash out later. Some people lash out in the moment. You understand? Some people wait for their opportunity and they strike when they can. But everyone reacts to fear differently. So just because you react to fear this way doesn't necessarily mean that if that person doesn't react to fear in the same way, there's a hidden agenda behind it. And this is what I mean by, if you focus too much on the character and comparing their character relative to your character, you're not going to come to the truth. What you're supposed to do is objectively evaluate the evidence that we can all look at. Aside from character, aside from this, what is the evidence that we can make a judgment of? You understand? And that is what we evaluate. You understand? We don't evaluate hypotheticals you're creating in your head, because as much as it might feel real, these are rational questions to ask in your head. It's just not real in that situation. Yeah.
Shame, all in the moment. It's very ignorant to say that, well, if you're getting raped, you should have just screamed. That's not how the real world works. When you've got power dynamics, someone as powerful as a celebrity, someone who's more influential than you, someone with more clout than you. It's not as simple as, oh, you should have just screamed. No, that's not how the real world works. That's not how nuanced something like Grape really is. What's to stop a man from absolutely punching you up black and blue, knocking you unconscious as soon as you open your mouth, or choking you so hard and putting his hand over your mouth? What's to stop that? I know the point she's trying to make, but that was very, very uneducated. There's also rumors now from this girl on TikTok, from people on the internet, that this girl allegedly did this to Bryson Tiller. I have Googled Bryson Tiller case, Perth, Australia. Nothing's come up. There was no accusations online. There was nothing. You can argue that they were going to throw out the case or there was no evidence, so they didn't pursue it. But surely, if someone's accused Bryson, there'd surely be like a rumor about it or something. There was nothing. There was not one news article mentioned Bryson Tiller being accused by anyone in Australia. So for me, I just want to see what everyone else has allegedly seen. I've Googled, I've looked on Twitter, I've looked on TikTok, and no one has shown any messages from her friends, the proof of Bryson Tiller, the fact she's an SEX worker, besides the fact that she's got a couple bikini pictures online, or she did OnlyFans at some point one time. I'm not too sure. I don't know. It's okay for you to defend him. I'm not saying you can't. I respect people's opinions, but it's so important that you don't generalize and assume that all women can lie, because for every one Amber Heard, there's a million Cassies. Let me say that again. For every one Amber Heard that lies on a man, pushes a fake narrative, portrays someone in a negative light, there are millions and millions of Cassies who really go through that every day, are forced to stay silent, who don't even pursue any action, keep it to themselves, who suffer in silence. That's why I choose to believe victims. Do I get it right all the time? Of course not. We're humans. Yeah, the same people saying this and this wouldn't look in the mirror and admit you don't get it right all the time. I don't care about being right, I care about the truth. And it's okay to have an opinion. To all the people saying, oh, well, we should wait for the facts and stuff to come out first. Keep that same energy 100% of the time. Whether it's a celebrity getting bagged for something.
Right? It is okay to have an opinion. However, it's more important to have the truth. And the reason I say this is because if enough people mobilize around an opinion, then that's when you get mob justice, mob violence, all of these things. And that doesn't necessarily lead to justice, if that makes sense. So it's important for you to have an opinion 100%. But the opinion should be, your intention with that opinion is to calibrate it with the truth. You understand? That opinion should only be temporal. The moment the truth comes out, that opinion should vanish to existence. Because if enough people mobilize around an opinion, whether it's true or not, there's going to be action behind it. So that is the danger with an opinion, is what is your incentive with that opinion. You understand? Are you seeking the truth with it, or are you just using it as an agenda?
Something, whether it's a gang member getting bagged for something, whether it's a politician getting bagged for something, whether it's a murderer, whether it's an alleged rapist, whether it's an alleged say that every time. Live your life like that. You can't flip-flop. You can't pick and choose. You can't have an opinion on this while also waiting for the evidence over there. You can't speak your mind on this topic while needing the proof and facts on this topic. Be consistent. I have an opinion on everything, so I'm going to give you my opinion on everything, even if it's potentially wrong, because I stand on business and I say things with my chest.
I respect people that are consistent, yeah, what's it called again, on their opinion all the time. But this is my point, is like, what's your goal? This is why I critique Topical Juice. It's like, not everyone, especially like in the West, quote unquote, we have freedom of speech, right? It's a quote unquote privilege, right? Which is meant to be a right, you understand? And the reality of the situation is that we have the same socioeconomic structure and standard across the whole world, because we live in a post-colonial neoliberal world, right? But the reality of it is that it's not universally applied. So in America, you might have freedom of speech, especially if you own property and all these things. But if you're in Egypt, and because it's being subsidized by America, you might not be able to say what you want all the time. So you can't be consistent, because it might not just result in your death, it might result in your whole family's death. So sometimes I can understand why people might be strategic instead of consistent. Their aim is for the truth, you understand? But they might not be always able to express their opinion. So yes, certain times they might say their opinion, And certain times they might have to wait for the evidence because it might be too risky to talk on a certain topic yet. But their aim is to get out a certain truth, you understand, that might have an action behind it. So it just comes down to what is your objective, you understand. If you're working in the media or the news, yes, you should have your opinion out there all the time. But if you're not, and you may be in a place where you may be vulnerable if you say your opinion, then you might have to be strategic. So it does depend on circumstance, and it does what for me matters more is, are you truthful? That matters more. And no one is perfect. There will be times when people lie, but what's more important is truthful consistency than just consistency for the sake of consistency. That doesn't put, for me, it's important that people are consistent, but also why are they consistent? Just being consistent for the sake of consistency doesn't put you on a moral high ground. So that's where I critique Topical Juice, because it's within the socio-economic interest to always have your opinion. Not everyone, it's not within their economic interest to always have their opinion. It just is what it is. And it's not, sometimes, if you even, so for example, if you live in Palestine right now, you can't always talk on the truth because it might result in something bad happening to you. You might end up dead. You can't always say your opinion. So sometimes they might have to be strategic. But on the flip side, you have to respect those that, irregardless of the situation, will always be consistent with the information, irregardless of the risk. There is respect, but ultimately, no one person is better than the other because they're still trying to achieve the same truth. You understand? So yeah, consistency does matter, but I don't think it gives you a crazy moral high ground. I think truthfulness is more important, and let's come to the end of the truth. Let's not try to say I had the best opinion or I was the most... Bruv, all of this is void to me. What matters the most is, let's find out the truth in this case. Did young Philly rape? And I don't care about, this person... Stop giving people... Everyone needs to stop giving themselves a pat on the back. And this is not me coming for Topical Juice. It's just everyone in general. Everyone, stop giving yourself a pat on the back. Let's try and find out the truth of what really happened, innit? Let's take our egos aside. What really happened, innit? And that's it. Simple as. Let's stop trying to say I'm consistent and you're not consistent. What's that got to do with the case? But yeah, man, let me get back into the video.
Do you understand? So for me, is it possible that this woman has set him up? Certainly, it's possible. If there's evidence to suggest that she did try to set Bryson Tiller up, or this was consensual, or he didn't take it too far, and all this stuff, okay, that's fine. Me and Philly will never be friends, we'll never be dogs, but I'll say, you know what, I was wrong. Until then, this will be the last time I talk about this. Generalizing anyone, any demographic, is wrong. The same way when a black person stabs a white person, right, and that white person dies, we all get punished for it. The black community gets punished for it, and we don't like that, do we? We don't like that. We don't think it's fair that one black person can commit a crime, but we all get blamed for it. What about when terrorism happens? A terrorist can be black, white, Asian, whatever, but when there's a terrorist attack, Islam gets blamed. Muslims get blamed. It's not fair, is it? So the same way you've got a problem with your community being blamed when one person from that community does something wrong, is...
Yeah, like I said, if you're from a certain socio-economic class or a certain background, your community might be more vulnerable to certain things, like for certain socio-economic factors, because of the way the system's structured. So bearing that in mind, if you're black, you understand, and you live in a working class area, yes, on top of that, not only do I not want to be blamed for that one brother, but I know also my community is more inclined to get involved in that because of our circumstances in it. So that being said, people shouldn't be saying, oh, because this person did this, you understand, they deserve that. On the flip side, we shouldn't generalize of everyone knowing how it feels, you understand. What we should just do is try and pursue the truth. As simple as that. What is the truth? And try to do it in the fairest way possible. If that means we do it through the law, so be it. But in my case, I don't think it's always... my personal opinion, I don't think the law necessarily aligns always with the truth. I think it aligns always with the socio-economic factors that run this society, and it's a branch of that. But I think what is most important above everything is just the truth. You understand? God is the witness of the truth, and as long as you speak truth, reveal truth, you understand, have truth in your heart, you understand, that is the most important thing. The truth will always reveal itself. It's just a matter of time, innit? Time is the best thing we have when it comes to the truth. Every lie cannot sustain itself, you understand? It takes energy to sustain a lie. So a lie will fall apart over a given amount of time. And equally, truth will reveal itself given enough time, innit?
It's the same way we
the evidence always will come out. given enough time.
Should not do that with women. Just because there is a small percentile, an absolutely tiny percentile of women that do lie on men, we should not blame the entire female population. Do you understand? That's what I'm saying. We go by statistics, we go by average. Most women don't lie. Most women don't even report the crime. Do you know how many people who have been raped and assaulted?
This is a very true thing. Statistically, most women won't report their rape because of embarrassment, because of its circumstances, because often also another factor is in most situations where someone's raped, it's often by someone they actually know. It's not by a stranger. So it's that embarrassment as well, and also sometimes a sense of Stockholm syndrome. If you once had a certain respect for someone in a certain relationship and they've done this to you, yes, in certain instances, those with a certain backbone and a certain willpower want to get justice and want to have that person dealt with, or just want to expose that person. But there's some people will try to preserve that thing that makes them feel good, that me and this person, before this incident happened, we treated each other this way, he was there for me in this way, or you understand, and they'll try to maintain onto that delusion. So I understand not everyone reacts the same way, and so because not everyone reacts the same way, the vast majority of rapes don't get reported because of how women react differently to these situations. So we do have to encourage people that when this does happen, you do need to speak up, or maybe even if you are the person that has heard it, speak up on their behalf when they are comfortable and when they are ready.
Assaulted and abused who haven't reported the crime. There's a lot of women and a lot of victims and a lot of survivors who don't report the crimes. Statistically speaking, they don't report the crimes because they barely get punished. It's very difficult to prove rape. That's why when it happens, you have to go to the law immediately, so you can get your swabs and you can get your inspected. You can see if there's any damage to your genitals or any bruises and things like that. Because if you report it too late and there's no evidence to support you, it's your word against theirs. So most rape victims don't get justice. I'm really breaking it down in simple terms why I think the way I think, whether it's experiences I've had, whether it's statistically speaking, facts, factual evidence. As I said, for every one Amber Heard, there's a million Cassies. There's a million women who go through it all the time who don't even report it, or they do report it and they get away with it, or they don't get justice for it, all these things. Do you understand what I'm telling you? So as I said, unless there's any more breaking news on this will be the last time I talk about it.
I hear that. However, him emphasizing that point too much, I do feel like it's not necessarily relevant within this situation. And the reason I would say that is because it's already been reported on. It's already been reported on. We already know about this and it's already blown up. So I feel like this is more of his personal anecdotal, which isn't incorrect, but he should be careful in not bringing this as too much baggage to his reporting on the case, because like I said, the woman has already stepped up in the situation and Philly has been charged. So I feel like this is the reality we should start from, as opposed to, we should acknowledge that reality, but we shouldn't overemphasize its importance within this circumstance, because that is not the case within this circumstance. Is that she did report on what happened, and what has happened has been exposed. Now we're trying to evaluate the truthfulness of what the reality of the situation is, and who the actual victim and perpetrator is, and who is innocent and who is guilty. However, within the certain current status quo of evidence, information, and data we have, it's implying most likely that it will be Philly that will be found guilty. However, until all the evidence is out and we have conclusive evidence, we don't know for sure. So that's all we can go off for now. But yeah, man. This is you being your boy K-Way on Frontline FM. Check out anything on our YouTube channel, Frontline Media. You can check out also our website, frontlinemedia.com. But yeah, check us out also on YouTube, Frontline Media. And yeah, I'm gonna play one of the videos I'm about to release. It's on the NMC and the NHS, and it's to do with discrimination that has been going on within UK health services against ethnic minorities and black nurses and doctors. So yeah, I'm gonna play this trailer.